actually one that I recorded last. And I'm like, I have a video talking about there's something wrong with the Fever and how they look defeated, everything. And I still stand by those videos, especially because some of them are reactions at the time, right after the game. So I mean this when I say this. Fire Stephanie White yesterday. Like, fire her yesterday. And the reason why is not that Stephanie White is a bad basketball coach. It's not that Stephanie White is a bad motivational speaker. It's not that Stephanie White has done a bad job defending her players. It's not any of that. It's that Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark fundamentally have different understandings of the sport of basketball.
Oh, you thought the WNBA drama peaked last week. Think again. Linn Dunn just dropped a verbal bomb on Stephanie White, and it's shaking the league. The message: stop treating Caitlin Clark like a glorified ball mover and start unleashing her as the offensive hurricane she truly is. And let's be clear, this wasn't subtle. Buckle up, because this meltdown has it all: passive-aggressive shade, sideline chaos, and a full dose of Indiana fury. Why is Caitlin Clark being reined in like a rookie on probation? This is more than coaching. It's a spicy basketball soap opera. And wait till you hear who said what.
Film breakdown prepared today, but I'm actually going to go a different direction. This is a rant because we have to talk about the state of this Indiana Fever team, and I'm here to bring the reality to all you Fever fans. This team is not a championship team. They're not a championship team. They're nowhere near close to a championship team because every team that is a championship team can play defense. This Indiana Fever team has no defense, and that's like the farthest of their problems. Their offense looked really bad today, and Caitlin Clark obviously didn't shoot the basketball well, but I'm not going to blame this loss on Caitlin Clark, even though obviously they would have won if she would have shot the ball.
Well, Linn Dunn didn't just wake up and choose violence. She chose a full-court press of righteous indignation and sideline sass. Why? Because watching Caitlin Clark jog around the perimeter like she's auditioning for a Fitbit commercial while the Indiana Fever run an offense that resembles a group project where no one did the homework. Yeah, that was her breaking point.
Go an entire game where they have not scored more than 20 points, where they have a quarter where they only score 9 points, and to call yourself a professional basketball team is pathetic. To call yourself a professional basketball coach of that team is pathetic. I watched that whole game, and other than Ari McDonald, Aaliyah Boston with a moment here and a moment there, nobody made any type of memorable impact on that game.
When Linn Dunn goes off, it's not some polite tea-sipping debate. It's a thunderclap in a library. Subtlety? Gone. Diplomacy? Left the building without a forwarding address. What we got instead was a seismic smackdown that lit up every group chat from ESPN studios to the Fever's own practice court. Why? Because one coaching decision, scratch that, a series of baffling choices, had Caitlin Clark looking less like the NCAA's all-time scoring phenom and more like a background extra in her own biopic.
Man, I want to speak on some recent comments that I saw coming across about Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, right? And this just speaks to a point that I made earlier about like people, it just shows that like how fickle fans are, right? And so, you know, like the Fever yesterday just lost to, they lost to the Aces, right? And their record is 6 wins, 7 losses. Same thing for the Aces. Their record is 6 wins and 7 losses. But for the Fever, you know, you have people who are, you know, who want to already run the coach Stephanie White out of town.
Stephanie White, bless her clipboard, apparently decided it was a brilliant strategy to turn Caitlin Clark into an honorary traffic cone, while the rest of the offense wandered around like they were decoding Morse code in real time. Let's just say, the vibes? Far from immaculate. Linn Dunn wasn't having it. The second Clark's handles got reduced to background noise in a playbook that might as well have been written in invisible ink. Dunn flipped the switch and went full executive mode.
Loss was not because Caitlin Clark didn't score the basketball. The reason you lost is because you stopped doing what was working. What worked for the Indiana Fever, especially in that first half, was a pick and roll with Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. All you have to do is have a pick and roll at the top of the key. Off that pick and roll, 2 defenders are going to go with Caitlin Clark, leaving Aaliyah Boston to have a wide open lane. That is just the play you should go to every single possession. But how come we never go to it in back-to-back possession? We'll go to it one possession, the next possession we don't go to it. Why not? Stephanie White, why not? It always works. 2 defenders are always going to go with Caitlin Clark. There should never be a play where Caitlin Clark brings the ball up the court and then she passes it and she runs off the play.
And when a GM speaks with that kind of lava-laced passion, it's not just noise, It's a blaring siren. Fix this mess or brace for impact. Because this wasn't just about underutilizing a star. This was a full-blown basketball identity crisis unfolding live in 4K. Complete with popcorn-worthy levels of mismanagement. It's one thing to draft a generational talent. It's another to treat her like a glorified cheerleader with a decent jumper. Dunn, like the fans, seemed to be watching the same circus. Clark constantly passing it off, defenders giving her all the space in the world, and a coaching staff that looked like they were assembling IKEA furniture, with no manual and missing half the pieces. And while Stephanie White might be playing the long game, balance, development, or whatever buzzword ends up on the media guide, Linn Dunn was done playing. Nice. Because in what universe do you let the most electric rookie in years become an off-ball ghost while the team clanks mid-range bricks like it's 1997? At this point, Caitlin Clark might need a missing persons poster, last seen. Setting scoring records in college, current status, lost in Indiana's rotational Bermuda Triangle. Let's be clear. Dunn isn't some passive executive sipping coffee in a skybox. She's a basketball lifer, a strategist with decades of receipts, and she's not about to let her crown jewel become the WNBA's most famous bystander. The woman practically slammed the panic button with her shoe.
What was the game plan against her to kind of slow her down?
Well, like I said pregame, it was just to try to make everything as difficult as possible. Like, you know, Asia's one of the best players in the world. You know, you're not going to stop her. So we just needed to make it difficult. And I thought AB did. But Asia did what great players do. And they step up in the fourth quarter. And that's what she did.
Caitlin's one of the real the past few games. Just what have you said to her, or what has she kind of said about keeping that confidence and
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is what we have to do as a staff to get her better looks, like higher quality looks. Every game plan is going to be to make her score inside the 3-point.
So what was the game plan? That's the problem. There wasn't one. The Fever looked like they were running an improved theater workshop with a basketball. 1 minute, Clark sprinting like she's about to ignite something electric. The next, she's exiled to the corner, watching another teammate brick an ISO possession like it's a sacred team ritual. And you could see it on Clark's face, that simmering, polite Midwestern fury. The kind where the smile gets tighter, the nods get slower, and you just know she's mentally planning a full-scale basketball revolution. Meanwhile, fans went full Sherlock Holmes. Frame-by-frame breakdowns. Conspiracy theory-level diagrams. Arrows flying in every direction. All of them asking the same question. Is Stephanie White conducting a social experiment to see how long you can misuse the most gifted shooter in women's basketball before a GM spontaneously combusts? And here's the kicker. Clark didn't even need the ball to expose the madness. Her off-ball movements were practically screaming help, like a distress flare in a sea of mid-range clanks and defensive chaos. Defenders clung to her like glitter in a preschool. Meanwhile, the Fever offense wandered aimlessly, like they'd lost their GPS, their playbook, and maybe even their will to compete.
So yes, the definition of Murphy's Law is anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Now, I'm being kind of dramatic here, but the Indiana Fever are down coach Stephanie White for an indeterminate amount of time. She is out for personal reasons. Stephanie White and her partner, Lisa Salters, who is also a sideline reporter for some NBA games. She is a sideline reporter for the NFL. They were both out at the same time, most recently, like a couple weeks ago. This is completely a personal reason, but there's obviously something that they're dealing with at home. But the adversity that the Indiana Fever have faced this season, I don't know that I've ever seen a team just go down so many key players and key factors to the roster. I mean, I don't know if a coach would be like a key roster member.
Linn Dunn didn't just notice. She boiled, watching your franchise star treated like a floor prop in a low-budget production. That's enough to make any seasoned exec question reality. She saw it all, shot opportunities evaporating, spacing collapsing like a bad souffle, and an offense slogging through molasses while Clark stood wide-eyed, untouched, and ignored. And of course, social media detonated. Fans turned into overnight coaches, drawing up plays in MS Paint. Timelines flooded with frantic diagrams. People dug up old NCAA footage like it was gospel, shouting into the void, cook. Meanwhile, Fever faithful whispered quiet prayers for an offensive coordinator, or at the very least, a whiteboard that wasn't being used as a glorified coaster during timeouts. By the time Dunn stepped in, the vibes weren't just off, they needed a full-blown basketball exorcism. And if that meant going public, so be it, because the clock's ticking. And you don't draft a generational star just to park her like a bench ornament while the offense plays hot potato, with zero heat. This wasn't just a strategic misfire. It was a basketball mystery bizarre enough to air on HBO right after a mafia doc. Who muzzled Caitlin Clark? Spoiler alert, it wasn't a rogue defender. It wasn't some genius scheme from the opposing bench. Nope. The culprit was front and center, sitting in the coach's chair, clipboard in hand, dialing up plays straight out of How to Undermine Your Franchise, Volume 1.